about everything you need to build this bridge. Most people immediately think about things like drawings, materials, permits, technical knowledge, and so on. Put all these ingredients together and you have everything you need to build a bridge. Sounds reasonable, right? And what if I tell you that to bring everything together, soft skills like communication are also important to project management? Still, a lot of people would agree with me. Nothing new, boring presentation, we know that already in 2022. Now I say we need specifically the competence empathy to succeed in building this project. People being empathic with each other, understanding how to work with each other, feeling how to communicate, and feeling how they can integrate working processes. There are probably still people here that don't think this is a weird or groundbreaking idea. But if this is so obvious, then why had no one ever done research about the importance of empathy to construction project success? Well, I now did, and I would like to share with you, I found this is a subject where we can improve. My name is Frédérique Batelaan, and I performed this research called Empathy to Build Projects and Relationships to finish my Master Construction Management and Engineering at the TU Delft. But why empathy? Empathy is the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. And we see that large infrastructural construction projects often face a poor project performance. Project participants need to integrate with each other and work together for a good project result. They must be able to find each other. There was a strong expectation that empathy might be important here. Furthermore, research about the topic was missing. The only research I found about the topic was a research stating construction professionals are lacking empathy. This is something I found interesting, and I wanted to know more about this. Well, this ultimately resulted in the following goal of the research: to investigate if and how construction project performance can be improved via empathy. To do so, the research consisted of 4 parts. The first part of the research was my literature review and theoretical framework. Second, I held in-depth expert interviews to investigate if and when empathy would be important in a construction project. In the third part of the research, I measured a complete project organization and their empathic ability via a questionnaire to gain more insight in the distribution of empathy in a project. Finally, I validated my findings in an expert session. I would also like to mention that I've collected all my data from one case project. I did this to make sure that my data collection was representative of a construction project and I could search for possible different perspectives within an organization. I used the VIA 15 project here, a big DBFM infrastructure project in the Netherlands. I looked at both the client and contractor side in the research. All my interviewees came from the project organization and I measured this project organization on empathy. Now we get to the interesting part, the results of the research. What have I found? An important finding of part 1 into the concept of empathy was first a difference in internal and external empathy, which I adopted in the research. Internal empathy is empathy within a project organization. External empathy is empathy with the client and/or stakeholders. Next to this, I found an interesting difference in someone's empathic ability and willingness to be empathic. Someone's empathic ability is to what extent someone is able to be empathic. Someone's willingness to be empathic is someone's personal engagement to be empathic. This can be someone's personal connection to the other, the commitment to the project, or someone's emotional state. Then I found during the interviews in the second part, empathy is indeed important. But when is empathy important? First, empathy is internally important between people from different processes in a project organization. Integration between them is important. They shouldn't work on islands. They need to speak each other's language. They need to understand each other. They need to be able to communicate better with each other. This is the responsibility of the managers of the different processes. Second, empathy is important within processes or teams. Here it is important between team members for the working atmosphere and their work satisfaction. If team members enjoy going to work, their productivity will go up. Also, empathy of managers is important here, as they need to understand how to involve and activate their team members. Finally, external empathy outside the organization is also important to project success. This is first important between the client and contractor. They need to empathize more with each other's interests and understand how to communicate, especially if a different situation arises. This is the responsibility of the management of the two. Next to this, empathy is externally also important with stakeholders. It is about understanding how to involve them here. They want to feel heard and they can thwart the project a lot. It is about understanding how to include their wishes and requirements. The interviews also revealed that it seems that external empathy seems particularly important. There was a lot of emphasis on this in the interviews, and this seems to be going wrong. Then there are the results of the measurement of empathy. I measured the empathic ability of the project organization with an existing test. This is the Interpersonal Reactivity Index test of Davis. And from these results, I can first conclude that people in the construction sector scored lower on average on empathy compared to averages from literature. This result shows that part 2 showed that people in the construction sector do have to be empathic, but they score below average according to part 3. So there is a gap here which lets us believe that there's room for improvement here. Furthermore, I found that women scored higher on empathy than men. People on the client side scored higher on empathy compared to people working on the contractor side, and managers scored lower on empathy than non-managers, which is very interesting because they are the people of which it is believed it is important they are empathic. Here we find a gap. After this, I could validate these findings of the interviews and the measurement in the expert session. Then my conclusion and recommendations. How to improve construction project performance via empathy. It seems that this can be done best through external empathy, so more empathy with the client and with stakeholders. Via internal empathy, this seems also possible, but less effective with regard to improving project performance. Because if you look at what causes a bad project performance, this is often related to a bad relationship between the client and contractor, or because stakeholders are not taken into account enough. Internally is often not the main cause. So I recommend to focus on more external empathy. And focus on empathy of the managers, as they scored lower on empathy. Try to do this already as early in the project as possible. Focus on more gender diversity, for example, as women are often more empathic. And try to select people in your project organization based on their empathic competences or train their empathic competences. Finally, I developed a framework for the construction industry that summarizes my findings into a strategy to improve project performance via empathy. Interested in the framework? Read more about it in detail in my report. The research was sponsored by Vermeer, a Dutch contractor. Maybe you've already seen the published video where I talked with Guus Keusters, director at Vermeer, about what the results of my research mean for Vermeer and its projects. Guus explained they recognize the integration challenges between people involved. Also, they are actively seeking on finding solutions to solve this. Also, the Dutch Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management participated in the research. They explained the topic is also interesting for them as they are currently in a transition of working together in partnerships where empathy is very useful to support cooperation. Well, until my research, the relevance of empathy to construction project management was unexplored. I hope more research about the topic will follow, and after this presentation, you will start thinking about this relevance more when practicing project management. Thank you for listening.